Hello everyone, Coach Chris here with WolfMoon Brewing. Today we're going to brew a partial quantity boil beer called a Sunny Side Grapefruit Radler. And I got this kit, not including a couple of things including the yeast, at Northern Brewer. I got my yeast and all my other supplies at my local home brew store that here in Vegas is called Vegas Home Brew, and I'll have the link in the description below. So today we're going to have some fun making this beer. Now, I got this kit because it is a full extract kit. There is no specialty grains in this. There is nothing difficult to do with this. There's nothing advanced. There are no advanced techniques. So this is absolutely a beer you can do on your kitchen stove. I'm not in my kitchen. As you can see, I'm here in the outside enjoying the lovely Vegas 110, 115 degree weather today while I'm out here brewing with you guys. As you can see there below is my 5-gallon pot. I've already got some water in there. I got 2.5 gallons of water in there, and below it is just a propane burner, and that is going to take place of my kitchen stove. So if you're just brewing in your kitchen stove, just pretend that burner is your kitchen stove. So let's take a look at what's in the kit. Obviously, we have the instructions, and those are going to be really important because actually they're pretty nice. They actually give you some space to put some notes the day that you brewed it. So take notes while you're brewing. That way when you go to brew it again, or if you want to find out what you did or what you did wrong, you can go back to your notes and duplicate the good things and fix the wrong things. Okay? Inside, we've got some liquid malt extract. We have 2 packages of dry malt extract. We have our hops, which in this case are crystal. And then we have our crystallized grapefruit flavoring. Now, I've already read through the instructions and have a good idea of what we're going to be doing today. This, the crystallized grapefruit, will not be used today. We're going to put that to the side. That will be used much later in the process after it's fermented. So let's get going. We'll go through and we'll get the water boiling, and we'll do some cutaways so you don't have to sit here and watch water boil. So as I mentioned, I put some water in there. There's 2.5 gallons of filtered water. You can use bottled water, you can use reverse osmosis water, filtered water, whatever water you use to drink will be acceptable in this. Just measure 2.5 gallons and put it on the stove, turn up the heat, and let it get to a boil. We'll be back in a few. So what I've done is I've gotten some hot tap water here. I'm going to take our liquid malt extract in this plastic bottle, and I'm going to put that right in the warm water. I want to soften up the extract a little bit so that it's easier to pour out of this container into the pot once we get to boil. All right, we're back. The water is now starting to boil. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the heat off on the stove, in my case, the propane burner, and we're going to take the pot and take it off of the hot burner. Reason for this is as we add the malt extract to the pot, we don't want it to settle to the bottom and burn. We want to make sure that it's completely mixed with the water before we put heat back on it so we don't burn it. So we're going to turn off the heat. We're going to put on some heat-resistant gloves, pot holders, whatever you have. Make sure you be careful. This is boiling liquid and quite a bit of quantity of it. I'm going to use that makeshift stand as if I have moved it either to another part of the stove or onto the kitchen counter. Now I'm going to take our liquid malt extract, which is this container. I've already taken the interior lid off. That has been sitting in our nice warm liquid, so it's gotten a little bit of softness to it. And we're just going to pour that in. And we're going to mix as it's pouring. We don't want it to sit, and we don't want it to burn. Okay. Now, even though I've warmed it up, and even though it's 110 degrees out here, and I'm sitting over very hot liquid, you can see that there's still quite a bit left in the container attached to the side. Now, if you don't have heat-resistant gloves, I do not suggest you do this. What you can do is take some of the boiling liquid, put it in there, slosh it around to try to get all that goodness back into the brew pot. Because you really don't want to throw it away. You want all that sugary, sweet goodness, all the flavoring in your beer, not in the garbage can. So, again, be very careful doing this. Do not burn yourself. I have. It doesn't feel good. That's why I use these big, thick rubber gloves now. Try to avoid getting any splashes or anything on your kitchen counter or on the stove. I will guarantee you, cleaning that up when you're all done is not fun. Okay, we've got almost all of it out. I'm happy with the amount we got out. So now we're done with that. We're done with our ladle. Now we're going to take our 2 1-pound packages of dry malt extract. I'm going to cut the top off of that. And slowly add that to the mix as well. Keep stirring as that goes in. If you just dump this in and let it sit, it will ball up on you and become a gooey mess, for lack of a better term. So you can see I got a little bit of the material there kind of caught up in the plastic just from the steam. You can dip it in there and try to get rid of it, just like that. Just be careful. Again, you don't want to burn yourself. You don't want to melt the plastic, so do it very quickly. And keep stirring. Okay? Now, we're going to do the same thing with the other 1-pound pack of dry malt extract. And again, while it's going in, continue to stir this. You don't want it to sit. You don't want the dry malt to gum up on you, create big balls. It becomes very difficult to break up. Okay, again, we got a little bit on the plastic. Dip that. Other thing is I have some that have gotten up high on my whisk, so I'll just take my ladle, ladle those off. Oops, clean that up in a second. You don't need to use a whisk. You can use a spoon, plastic spoon, stainless spoon, metal spoon, whatever. You can use one of those nylon mixers or nylon tools that are very high temperature. You can use those as well. Don't use wood, not at this point. Or actually, should never use wood except during the very early in the process, and we'll get to that when we do all grain brewing. You can use a wood mash stick. Otherwise, you should always be using a material that will not absorb or is not porous. Let's go with that. Okay, so that's now well mixed up. Now that it's all mixed up and everything's back in, put your gloves back on, put this back on the burner, and turn your burner on. And now you want to bring it back to a boil. Now the key here and I guess that's out. So we'll try another. There we go. And the key here is to watch this. I guarantee you, if you walk away from this anywhere from this point to the time you turn the burner back off, it will most likely boil over. invariably happens. You can sit here the entire time and watch it and it won't boil over. The moment you walk away, it will boil over. Trust me. Had it happen way too many times. Learned my lesson. So keep an eye on it. As it gets close to a boil, you'll start to see the bubbles start to forming of the liquid starting to get close to a boil. As it's getting close to there, stand by with your whisk. And if you have another bottle, spray bottle, if you have one that is brand new and clean, fill it with just plain old filtered water. You can use this to spray down the top of the beer as it's starting to boil, to break up the foam at the top, and it will help eliminate boil over. So, spray bottle of water is always nice to have on hand. Okay? So we're going to cut away for a few minutes until this comes to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we'll be right back. All right, so just starting to come to a boil. I'll keep this, and you can probably see that it's coming up close to the top. Now that it's come to a boil, I'm going to turn the heat way down. Okay, give it a little stir, be careful. Turn the heat way down. You want to keep it boiling, but you don't need a tremendous boil. Nice. I call it a heavy simmer. Okay. Again, keep an eye on it. And this spray bottle, boy, that really helps. That breaks down that foam, along with stirring it. Makes a tremendous difference. Really makes your life easier. Okay. All right, so we're a nice boil now. So now, this is going to boil for 30 minutes. Now, as per the instructions, it says to add these hops for the full 30 minutes. So, we're going to open up the top. Actually, it has a little pull top on it, but I'm just going to cut it open. Now, when I add the hops, it could start to boil over again. So, again, pay attention and keep an eye on it. There we go. Now, start your timer. I'm just going to use my watch here. 30 minutes. Stir that in one last time. And keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it for the full 30 minutes. If you don't, it could boil over, and it's a mess to clean up. So, now that it's boiling, during these 30 minutes, since there's really nothing else that needs to be done at this point in time, take your fermenter, take your bubbler of choice, take your hydrometer. You're going to want to clean and sterilize and sanitize all that so it's ready to go when this is done in 30 minutes. So I'm going to break away. I'm going to clean all my gear, and we'll be right back. All right, we still got about 10, 15 minutes left to go. Actually, 14:34 to go. So, but I just wanted to let you know that while I was trying to clean my fermenter, I noticed some really big, nasty scratches on the inside of this, so I will not be using this fermenter. I'm going to be using a plastic bucket, but it is a 8-gallon bucket as opposed to a 6.5 gallon. So, apologize for that, but these things do happen. So, we roll with the punches and we make do with what we have. So, also, since we're getting close to about 10 minutes left, what I also like to do is I start to prep my cooling. At this time, instead of using any type of other apparatus or device to cool, we're just going to use an ice water bath. Ice water bath is basically, we're going to put this boiling pot into a container that is filled with ice water. Could be your kitchen sink, could be a bucket that's bigger than this, whatever you have. I've heard people even using their tub. Whatever you have, it's a easy way to cool down this liquid. It's an inexpensive way because you're just using ice and water and whatever else you have around the house. So I'm going to start prepping a container that I have with some ice water and get that ready. And that will mimic a kitchen sink because I know that my boil pot does fit in the kitchen sink. And if I'm doing this in the kitchen, I would be doing the cooling in the kitchen sink with a vat of ice water. So I'm going to step away and start prepping that. And we'll be right back as soon as this is just about done boiling. Okay, so we're just about done with the boil. I've prepped my kitchen sink, for lack of a better term, fill it with ice water. Quick little trick, fill it with ice water and then put a little bit of salt in it. We'll actually drop the temperature in this another degree or two and make it a little bit colder, and it'll help you get your beer, your wort down to what you want to shoot for is about 100 degrees or under. So, and you want to get there as quickly as possible. So, to do that, throw in a couple tablespoons of salt helps a lot. And there's my watch showing that we're done. So I'm going to stop the timer. I'm going to turn off the burner. I'm going to put on my heat-resistant gloves again. I'm going to take this pot and we're going to put it right in cold water. Sorry about that cutaway. We're going to actually take our whisk again, or your spoon, or whatever you had, and we're going to stir this. Stirring helps move the colder liquid, which is now on the edges of the pot, into the center, and you get the hot liquid out to the edge so it can cool down in the ice water, in the ice bath. Okay, so let that spin, stir it every so often until you get down to about 100 degrees. If you can get it down under 100 degrees, great, but don't get too crazy. You don't need to go too crazy. 100 degrees is good. And I'm at 170, so it's going to be a few minutes before I'm there. So break away. I'll keep cooling this down, and we'll be right back. Okay, so while I was gone, I've gotten the brew down just about to 100 degrees. Actually get at 100 right now. Perfect. During that time, I was running out of ice. The ice started melting a little faster than I anticipated, probably because it is so warm outside. So I actually threw in a couple of these type of instant ice packs that I had in the freezer, and that helped get it down to the end. I've also got my fermenter sitting right here next to my kitchen sink, and in the fermenter that has been cleaned and sanitized already, I've got my little sifter or strainer sitting on top. And again, this fits fine in my 6-gallon and doesn't fall in, but because I'm using the larger fermenter today, I have this piece of wood to hold it in place so it doesn't fall in. Last thing I want is to have an accident. And in the bottom of the fermenter, which is very important right now, is I have just over 2 gallons of ice cold or refrigerator cold filtered water. The same type of water that I used to make the wort with earlier today. That has been sitting in the fridge for actually overnight. I put it in last night, so it's really cold. That will help bring this temperature down to the final temperature that we're actually looking for, which is about 65 to 75 degrees, somewhere in there. So again, we've just kept stirring it. We got the temperature down. Let me just take one more last check of the temperature. And I'm actually reading 99, so we're good to go ahead and put this into the fermenter. So we're going to take our whisk, put that off to the side, out of the way. Now, it is 100 degrees. It is still warm, so be careful. I pour this through the strainer to catch all the hops and everything or anything else that has accumulated during the brewing process. makes my beer a little bit clearer at the end. You can dump it. You absolutely can just dump this straight in and not strain it. I have better success straining it. Okay, so we're all in. A little bit of debris left in the pot, which is good. Now we're going to check our quantity, and we're at 4 1/4 gallons. So I need to add another 3/4 of a gallon of cold water. I'm going to throw that right through the strainer since it's there. Okay. Strainer out of the way. Piece of wood out of the way. And add another 1/2 gallon. Again, cold filtered water. Pour it up to the 5-gallon mark. Now, whatever fermenter you have should have markings on it to indicate where the 5 gallons is, 5-gallon mark is. If it doesn't, pre-measure it. Get a gallon container of water, pour it in 5 times, wherever it is, put a Sharpie mark or whatever on the fermenter so you know where 5 gallons is. That's important. Okay. So now let's take one more temperature reading and see where we're at. We'll probably be a little warm because of the ambient temperature here today. Actually not bad. It's showing 75.2. So it's a little warm for me to put to my comfort level to pitch my yeast in, but you could absolutely pitch your yeast in. I'm just going to cover this up, and I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes and let it do its thing and cool off here a little bit. I've also gotten my yeast ready. Now, you could absolutely just use the yeast from the package that you got in the kit from your local homebrew store, whatever, as is. Just bring it up to room temperature, let it sit for about an hour or so to get it to room temperature, and then you can throw it in. I actually created a yeast starter 2 days ago. There'll be a video on that at some point posted. I'm not sure when that'll get posted. So this has been sitting on my stir plate and doing its thing. So I'm ready to pitch the yeast once that gets down to temperature. So I'm going to give it a few minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. While I was gone, I did a little bit of cleanup and rearranged a little so more things are in the center of the camera for you. So I just took a measurement and I'll do it again. And I was showing that I was at 71, so I'm much happier now. So it didn't take quite as long as I thought it would. It only took about 10 minutes to get down. Just guess it took a little while for the cold water and the hot to really mix well. So we're ready to pitch our yeast. But before we do that, we want to take a measurement with our hydrometer of what the starting gravity is. Best way to do this. Now this has been cleaned and sanitized. Put that into the bucket. And it's going to bounce up and down. And then you just read on the hydrometer what the starting gravity is. And right now, through all the bubbles, it looks to be at 1.040. Now, I'm going to note that down, 1.040 at a temperature 72 degrees. That's what I think it was, right? $71.5 now. 71.5 degrees. Reason being is hydrometers are calibrated when the liquid they're in is at 60 degrees. So I'm going to take that, I'll go back to my calculator, which they're online, so you can find it, and get my exact reading for my starting gravity. Now I'm going to pitch my yeast. Now, multiple schools of thought here for yeast starters. If I am trying to make a competition beer, I will be a lot more cautious about pouring this whole thing in. However, for just my normal beers that I'm drinking, that I'm enjoying, that are on tap, I just find it much easier just to take this whole thing and dump it into the fermenter. If you don't want this extra liquid in your beer, and it will or could lower your starting gravity and could change the taste of your beer by a small amount, then by all means, let your starter set for about an hour or so, maybe 2, and then you'll start to see that the yeast will settle out. Once the yeast has started to settle out, you can decant off this top liquid, leaving only a little bit of liquid and then all the yeast. Then stir it up and dump it in. So we're going to go ahead, and I was looking for a magnet, which I don't seem to have near me, so I do my best not to pour the magnetic stir stick in. But a trick is to take a magnet, put it on the bottom, that'll hold the stir stick so it doesn't end up in the bottom of your fermenter. So in goes the yeast. If the stir stick falls in, it's not a big deal. It's been cleaned and sanitized, so it's perfectly fine. I'll fish it out at the end of the process. Okay, there you go. I was able to save the stir stick. Okay. Now the top goes on. Again, this has been cleaned and sanitized, but I'm just going to give it one more spritz of Star San. Top gets connected on. And then our bubbler goes in. Again, one more spritz of Star San, just cause. Then you're going to want to fill this. You can use cheap vodka or a clear spirit if you'd like. I just use Star San, and there's a little line on here, and it says fill line, so I just fill it to that line. Okay. Now that's going to go into a cool, dark place that has a temperature that maintains somewhere between 65 and 75 degrees. If it's a little warmer or a little colder, that's perfectly fine. You'll just have a slightly different flavoring with your beer based on the way the yeast behaves at that temperature. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to put that in there, and we're going to let it sit for about 2 weeks. And after about 2 weeks, we'll check the gravity again with the hydrometer to verify that the yeast has done everything that it's supposed to with eating the sugars, and get this now to a beer, and then we'll be ready to bottle. So remember, home brewing is really fun, but so is drinking responsibly. I really appreciate you watching. Again, I'm Coach Chris, and we'll see you next brew.